there's a quality to the light at this time of year that I find almost difficult to account for. It's not warmth exactly, though there is warmth, it's more like pressure. The light at midsummer in the north of England and Wales and in Scotland pushes right to the edges of the day. 10 o'clock at night and the western sky is still pale. The birds that should have quietened down hours ago are still at it. The hedgerows are so dense with green that they seem to be leaning in. I think the word I'm reaching for is excess. The world at midsummer is excessive. It's gone as far as it can go. And there's something in that, something that doesn't feel entirely comfortable, that I want to sit with for a moment before we go anywhere else. Because fullness of this kind has a quality to it that abundance alone doesn't quite capture. When something has reached its furthest point, its absolute limit, there's a kind of tension in it. Not threat, exactly, more like held breath. The world at full stretch, aware on some level that it can't stretch any further. That feeling is where midsummer lives for me. Not in the warmth of the afternoon, in the long pale evening that goes on and doesn't quite become night. In the sense that the ordinary rules of the day have been suspended, gently without announcement. The old traditions knew this feeling. They had names for moments like it. Thresholds, edges, places where the usual boundaries of things become briefly negotiable. Midsummer is one of those moments. And I think the landscape has been trying to tell us that all along. And people did respond. For a very long time and across a very wide stretch of this island and beyond it, they build fires. On hilltops mostly, which is already telling you something, because a fire on a hilltop isn't a fire for warmth or for cooking or for keeping something at bay. It's a fire to be seen. It's a fire that says, we know what this moment is. We're here and we are paying attention. From Wales to Cornwall, from Scotland to Ireland, from the Isle of Man to the coast of Brittany, midsummer fires were lit at the solstice. And one of the things the accounts tell us, the ones that survive anyway, mostly from later antiquarian sources, so they're worth holding lightly, is that they were lit in chains. Fire answering fire from across the hills. One community watching another's flame appear on a distant ridge and lighting their own in return. And that image has stayed with me, because it suggests that the acknowledgement was collective. It was not just a village marking the season in isolation, but a whole landscape full of people saying the same thing at the same time in a language made of fire. Now, the anthropologists will give you functional explanations for this. Purification, protection of cattle, the symbolic renewal of the sun's strength. And these explanations are probably right, as far as they go. But I think they sit alongside something that doesn't reduce quite so easily. The instinct to mark the threshold with light, to meet the moment with something visible, something that costs effort to make. As if doing nothing on a night like this, in a world stretched to its limit, would itself be a kind of failure. But there was another tradition, quieter than the fires, and in some ways stranger. The custom of staying awake through the solstice night. Not to celebrate exactly, not in the way we might think of a celebration with noise and company and the passing of cups. The vigil was something more deliberate than that. You kept watch. You stayed awake through the few dark hours the midsummer night allows, and you waited for the sunrise. It's worth pausing on what that actually involves. The solstice night in northern Britain is short, genuinely short. 4 or 5 hours of real darkness at most, bookended by a dusk that never fully deepens and a dawn that arrives almost before you've settled into the night. You're not enduring a long darkness, you're attending to a brief one. And I think that distinction matters, because the vigil isn't about hardship, it's about presence. It's about refusing to sleep through the one night of the year when the world turns its corner, choosing to be conscious at the hinge. And there's something in that which feels very human to me. The recognition that some moments are too significant to miss, even when, or especially when, they are quiet, even when nothing visible announces them. The solstice doesn't announce itself. The sun rises, as it always does, but the vigil keeper knows what they're watching. They know that this particular sunrise is the one after which the light imperceptibly begins its retreat. And knowing that changes what you see. The darkness you've kept watch through is the shortest of the year, and you've chosen not to waste it in sleep. That's an act of attention that carries its own kind of meaning. It's a way of saying, this threshold is real, and I intend to stand in it consciously. The world, just before that dawn, feels different. The traditions agree on this. Something is looser at this hour. The boundaries between one thing and another, between sleeping and waking, between this world and whatever lies alongside it, are not quite where they usually are, which is where we're going next. The old traditions of these islands held that there were nights when the world became permeable, when the membrane between the everyday and whatever lies beyond it grew thin enough that things could pass through in both directions. Now most people, if you ask them, will name Samhain as the great threshold night, the end of October, the dying of the year, the dead returning. And Samhain is that. But it wasn't the only one. May Eve was another. And Midsummer, the vigil night, the night of the highest and already retreating sun, was another still. The fairy associations of Midsummer are old enough and widespread enough to be worth taking seriously, not as a literal belief, but as a symbolic vocabulary that encodes something true about the season. Shakespeare drew on genuine folk currency when he set his midsummer dream on this night of all nights, the lovers lost in a wood that doesn't behave as woods usually do, the ordinary world briefly subject to a different set of rules. He didn't invent that atmosphere, but he recognised it. And what the tradition seems to be pointing at underneath the folklore is something the vigil keeper already knows from experience, that at the hinge of the year, the moment of fullness that is also the moment of turning, ordinary perception isn't quite adequate to what's happening. The world is doing something that daylight consciousness isn't well equipped to witness. You need a different kind of attention, a softer focus, the readiness to let the edges of things be less defined than usual, which is perhaps why the old instinct was to stay awake rather than to celebrate loudly, to be still and receptive on this particular threshold, not to fill it with noise, but to inhabit it quietly and see what it had to say. That instinct to meet the liminal moment with open attention is one of the oldest things we know about how people have marked the turning of the year, and it's the one that hasn't dated at all. It's also, I think, the best possible preparation for what's coming next. Here is a midsummer meditation. Now if you're driving or using heavy machinery, or you just need to pay attention to something, you can pause the episode now and come back to it later. But find a comfortable position and take a moment to arrive fully in it, feeling the weight of your body, the support beneath you. There's nothing you need to do right now except be here and take a breath. And as you breathe out, let the day settle a little. Let whatever you've been carrying set itself down. We've been talking about attention, the attention of the vigil keeper, not straining towards something, not waiting for something to happen, simply present, simply awake at the hinge of the year. And let yourself settle into that attention now. And if you close your eyes or soften your gaze, I'd like to invite you to become aware of where you are in relation to the sun. Not the sun as you might see it through a window or feel it on your face, but the sun as a presence, as something that's been moving in relation to you all day, all year. Something that you're always, in some sense, oriented toward, even when you can't see it. And right now, wherever you are, the sun is somewhere in its arc. Feel that if you can, not as a thought, but as a bodily fact. You're on the surface of a turning world, and the sun is moving in relation to you. And gently let your awareness expand to hold the full circle of that moment. The sun rising, feel that direction if it's available to you. The high point of noon, the warmth at its fullest, the light directly above. Feel where the light goes when it leaves us. And then beneath, the arc the sun makes through the hours of darkness, below the earth, invisible, travelling back toward the dawn. You are at the centre of that wheel. This is what the vigil keepers knew. Not just that the sun rises and sets, but that it completes a circle, and you are always at the heart of it, always the still point around which the light turns. At midsummer, that wheel is at its fullest. The arc overhead is at its longest. The sun has climbed as high as it will climb, and reached as far as it will reach, before beginning, gently, imperceptibly, its long return. Feel that fullness for a moment, the world at full stretch, the light at its furthest reach. And then beneath that fullness feel the turning, not as a loss, as a direction, as the year knowing where it's going, as you, perhaps, knowing something about where you're going. This moment of highest light is also a threshold, and you're standing in it, awake and attending. Whatever this season has been growing in you, whatever has reached its furthest point, whatever is ready to begin its own quiet turning, let yourself be aware of it, gently, without needing to name it or resolve it, just aware. You are at the center of the wheel, the light is turning, and you are here, conscious at the hinge. And take a breath. And when you're ready, bring your awareness gently back to the room, to the weight of your body, to the ground beneath you. The year turns, and you turn with it. Alban Hefin, the light of summer. The fires on the hills have been dark for a long time now. The vigil keepers are mostly gone. But the night still has that quality if you are willing to stay awake in it. The world still reaches its limit and turns. The threshold is still there for anyone who wants to stand in it. And that's what the old traditions were doing, I think. Not performing belief, not following rules, just refusing to sleep through the hinge, choosing to be present at the moment the year changes direction, with a fire lit or a watch kept, or just simply paying attention. And that's enough. It always was. I'm Rowan Lund. This is At the Field Edge. The year is turning, walk well in it.